Welcome to the Local Marketing Source Weekly Update, brought to you by localmarketingsource.com.
This week's Local Marketing Update is brought to you by Scott Gallagher. Scott is the co-founder of Local Marketing Source and has become the recognized expert in providing online marketing services to local businesses. Follow Scott on Twitter at ScottGallagher5 and on Facebook.com/ScottPGallagher.
Listen only mode.
Hey, well, good afternoon, everyone. Scott Gallagher here with Local Marketing Source, bringing your weekly local marketing industry update. Now, next week's LMS member faculty call is going to be Wednesday, August 13th at 4 p.m. Eastern. And don't forget to subscribe and listen to our weekly podcast on iTunes and on our YouTube channel. Now, this week, well, before I get started, last week I wasn't too sure. I'd mentioned to you that I was up at my cottage on Manitoulin Island in Canada. And, well, the weather has just been so nice, and there's just been so many family members coming in and out. I made the executive decision to stay. And I would have been traveling yesterday, and today I could be sitting in my office, but I'm thankful I'm at where I'm at. In any event, I will definitely be in the office next week, so I apologize if the live connection is a little sporadic at time to time. The weather seems to be nice here, so our connection is good. But nonetheless, to go over this week, we're going to have a little bit of talk. There really wasn't a lot of discussion this week in terms of the changes. We got in some really good discussion last week in terms of some of these update changes and where the algorithm seems to be going and some of the different results and whatnot. But nonetheless, not a lot this week. So that's good. That's good news in terms of updates. But this week, Google has announced that they've dropped author stats, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But there is Yelp is really getting into the news, and Yelp is getting a lot of fire pointed at them. And so there's different discussions around that. We're going to start a discussion off with Union Street and what that is and what's happened with Union Street and what's going on with that and what's going on with Yelp and why Yelp is getting into the media right now. And they could significantly hurt themselves. So on that note, I'm going to be spending some time today and later today getting into the Facebook group. I know there's been a lot of activity there, and I haven't been that active, but when you've got half a mile of beach and big waves, I was out in the kayaks today playing in the waves, and whoever thought kayaking could be so much fun in waves. We're right on the big water too, so it's really neat. So authorships, and about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, Google introduced authorship, and it really made a really big impact, especially in the SERPs, because less than 6% of websites utilized authorship, but over 30% of websites that ranked in the SERPs had authorship attachments to it. Of course, there's a lot of discussion, and it doesn't mean that there's a direct correlation, but nonetheless, there was a little bit to learn. But the big thing was that authorship allowed us to put a little picture up, and it vastly improved conversion. Even if you had spot number 2, you would get a higher click-through rate than being in spot number 1 if spot number 1 never had the authorship and number 2 did. Well, that, as we know, had changed. Now, on the back end, there was a tremendous amount of data that you can get with authorship. And Google has just removed that. So what is that telling us? I believe that authorship is no longer have a valid opinion to it. I think it was a strategy that Google employed. I think it was abused by the SEO community. And I think there's some truth to it. But the fact of the matter is you've got to find different ways to identify who specific authors are. Just because one website is a website doesn't mean everybody on it's one individual that has created content to a particular website. So I think we're going to see some additional changes in that. I don't think authorship is really going to go away, but it's not going to be something prevalent. It's going to be more or less in the background for ranking reviews, and definitely still ensure that all websites that are created utilize that. Now, Union Street. I can see this call being pretty short. We don't have a heck of a lot to talk about, but hopefully we'll get into a lot of different questions. Last week on the live call, we got into a variety of really good questions. It was nice and active. I just see we got some good attendance on. But Union Street, this is here in the United States. They dealt with weddings, and they essentially had a bad wedding, and the organization threatened the wedding party that if they left any bad reviews, they would charge the wedding party $500. And so the wedding party begged their guests to not leave reviews. Well, this went viral and obviously got onto the internet. And this site here ended up, I think they had somewhere around, what's the number? 17 reviews before this broke out. And within a few days, they ended up having over 850 reviews. Well, obviously, they were negative reviews. And at the same time, they're getting a slew of links to their website. And so what's interesting here is they could actually use this to their advantage. From an SEO standpoint, they're getting some really good exposure. But on the other hand, they've created a mess here that, how are they going to handle this situation? Obviously, moving forward and trying to charge their guests $500 for these reviews is only going to create further negative press and ultimately hurt them. But if they completely dropped that clause and left it as it is, the majority of these reviews are from bogus sites anyhow, so the majority of them aren't even showing up. And the legitimate reviews will ultimately push through the filters. But what's getting really interesting now is Yelp is getting a lot of fire, predominantly from this story, but it really goes well beyond that, of where Yelp seems to be removing or hiding more negative reviews than positive reviews in a percentage ways. That's biased. That's putting Yelp in a position where they're being accused of demanding additional revenue, which if you paid Yelp more money, your review count could be influenced. So Yelp is really getting scrutinized right now in terms of the ethics of the business that they are performing. But nonetheless, a lot of these reviews, 146 negative reviews in 6 hours, and then over a 24-hour period, 800 and change in reviews, is indicating that people are also leaving Yelp a little bit, and they're getting a good terms of media. But nonetheless, I think that this is going to put a little bit of fire under Yelp. I believe the organic aspect, just like how Google is that they offer a very good organic free product, and then they can ultimately monetize. If Yelp chooses, so I think that if Yelp does choose to continue, and it is in fact true that they are leaving out more negative reviews on the bias of certain businesses, that's corruption, that's politics, that's going to hurt them in the long run. But if they stick to their guns and stick to the organic aspects of it, just like Google, I think they'll be all right. So hopefully we talk some additional news about them next week. So folks, that does come to the conclusion. I can still see that we got a couple of people that are signing in right now. I see a few new names. For all the LMS members that are live on the call right now, typically, some weeks we'll have a 40 or 50 minute update. Some weeks it's 10 minutes. This is one of those weeks that there just wasn't really a lot that went on in the internet marketing community. I am going to be getting last week's call uploaded. It takes me about 15 hours to upload a call, so I'm just going to run it overnight. Keep the satellite on tonight and get it up so you guys can listen to all that and get into the questions. I don't see anybody's got their hands up for any questions. Let's see if we've got anybody that's typed in, but I do want to Just apologize for the shortness of this. This feels really short this week, but it is what it is, right? So we had a great week last week in terms of questions. It was really busy. And I got the same number of attendees on the line today. And I don't have any questions. Well, there's a good one. Enjoy your vacation. George around Killarney. That was your old stomping ground, Killarney. That's neat. Yeah, that's really neat. My son, he's American. And he's been learning a lot about the War of 1812 because for the Americans on the line, you don't really get taught the War of 1812. Interestingly, the War of 1812 is the only war where the American military was actually pushed back, and also the only war where the White House was burned down. But you don't find that in American history books. So he's been studying that, and as George would know, in his old stomping ground around Killarney, that's around the French River, and the Killarney is probably the best fish and chips in the world. Come out of Lake Huron, very, very good, and that's where there was a lot of battles around that area. It's really neat. It's also a very, very cool area to go scuba diving because there are just vast amounts of sunken ships and masts and old chain and a whole variety of different things. So yeah, that would be cool, George. Get in touch with me and we'll definitely go for a lunch. Ed's got a question here. Good. Please tell me what to do with Google Plus. Every time I sign in, it goes up to a personal Google Plus page. I want it to go to the business. Well, businesses don't have accounts. So when you sign in with a personal account, and then you've got to go and manage pages. So you've got to go and click on the manage the page. And it will give you a list of different pages to manage. And then you're managing the business. Well, yes, Ed, every time. If you, what are you asking? How can I get clients? Well, once you take ownership, or once you have ownership of a page and a business is claimed, then you have the ability to manage that page. Under the management of that page, you can add your business's login. So you can have multiple managers on a page. All right. Well, good luck with that, Ed. You're welcome. Well, it looks like that's going to be it, folks. Oh, no. Last question. Ed's typing something out, and Lex has got something here. Good. Typically, how long before algorithmic changes hit the Canadian version of Google? Well, I'm just trying to run through everything right here now, Lex, and that each country does have different algorithms. Let's face it, for different reasons, and to be able to show different types of content. But when we're talking major updates that affect sites across the globe and factors that affect it across the globe, it's not going to influence the factors that say, well, more Canadian sites. They've got algorithmic they've got it built into their algorithm to say, well, relevancy of the country that you're in. And those updates aren't really that big, and those don't come very frequently. Some of the bigger updates that have come frequently are across the board. Now, sometimes we see that rolled out internationally when they've done enough tests, and they'll typically do enough tests, and so that would be instantly. Other times we've seen updates roll out starting in the United States, and then other times not starting in the United States and in other countries for testing purposes. So that answer, there's no real simple answer to that. And I've seen it in a variety of different ways. So I guess it's more likely dependent on the algorithm that they're updating and the influence that it might have. Ed's asking, how does a create pages cost in total? I'm not sure what you're asking, Ed. All right, Nick's got his hand up. Ian's got a question. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, Nick. Hopefully, with the internet, we should be able to hear you properly. Are you there? I'll give Nick a second here. Nick Dale, you should be unmuted. All right, you're not, so I will go ahead and mute Nick again. Oh, geez, just as I unmuted you, you came through. Let me try that again. Hello,
Yeah,
Nick.
here we go. Unmuted. Can you hear me?
There you are.
Can you hear me, buddy? Okay, cool. I'm on my iPhone, so I'm just getting used to the app. Can you still hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. We're just on a real delay because the signal goes to space first and then comes back down to Earth. So give it a second after you say something.
Okay, cool. Wasn't interweb cool. The reason for throwing my hand up was just that last comment about the changes to the regional Googles, and yeah, it's something I've noted in the last few years that some of the updates that people get their knickers in or not about simply haven't been rolled out to the New Zealand regional Google. And several months ago now, must be 3 to 5 months, I would think, read a really good article by an Italian SEO guy that I follow. He works in the Spanish and Italian Googles, and he had written a really good piece about a number of large updates that we all recognise, and the impact that they'd had on those regional Googles. And frankly, they had none, which was in line with my experience in New Zealand. One of the examples was the exact match domains, which has yet to be rolled out to New Zealand. Yeah, so I just thought that was interesting. If I can find that article, I'll post it to the Facebook page, because I know you've got students from all around the world. Yeah,
that'd be great, because that's an area that I've got to further educate myself as well. And I do have to make assumptions, and I've definitely used Google Canada quite a bit, and I don't see a lot of differences. I don't see any differences other than Canadian content.
Yeah, I'd imagine that the Canadian Google would be pretty closely aligned to North America. In fact, I didn't actually know there was a separate Canadian one. I thought North America was pretty much tarred with the same brush.
No, it's actually, when you're up here, it goes to google.ca.
Okay.
And I can't my
one other thing, have you done much, Scott, around getting backlinks from Google properties?
Well, what kind of Google properties?
Like Drive and Hangouts.
No, I haven't, other than social exposure.
I was watching a couple of videos yesterday and just doing a couple of tests over the next week. Yeah, that might, if what was claimed in the video proves to be true, it should be a really great opportunity to pick up a very high page rank backlink from some Google properties. Of course, you've got to execute the backlink in just the right way. But yeah, this looks like there's a really cool opportunity there.
Well, definitely share with what your thoughts are when you find out.
Yeah, so just doing some testing to set up a couple of backlinks yesterday, and we'll know within, well, because it's Google property, pretty bloody quickly, what impact that has on the SERP.
Yeah,
that's my 2 cents worth.
Good. Well, I really appreciate that speaking up, and I think that's some good opinion, your experiences. And Lex, just to clarify, Nick is in New Zealand, and he's been a member for quite some time, so he definitely has some understanding. That, I speak from a U.S. perspective, and thanks for sharing that, Nick.
Welcome.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and mute you now. Yeah, we can no longer hear you. All right, Ian's asking, is there any other review sites like Angie's or Judy's book that are also going to be under scrutiny after this Yelp situation? Well, again, I mean, it's all a matter of their ethnicity. Are they ethic players, and are they showing all reviews, not just positive, and treating everybody the same? I hope they don't make the same mistakes. Nick, different Nick now is asking, certain citation sites, Yahoo Local, Yelp, Jeep, Google Plus, require the robot that calls the business phone number and leaves a PIN that requires to validate an account. I've found this to be sometimes challenging with remote businesses. Informing this call is coming, making sure that they write down the PIN or forward it to me. You have to know what I'm talking about. Any tips to simplify this process, Scott? Yikes. Not really, man. It's got to be done, no matter what, at the end of the day. So you've got to go through it. But I'm gonna speak. I've got. It just so happens. I'm going to go ahead and unmute Ian here at this point in time. I see he's got his hands up, or one hand. I don't know if he's got both hands up. Maybe just one. Are you there, Ian?
I'm here.
Hey, do you have a question, or do you have something to add?
No, I wanted to make a comment about that last question because that's something that I have personally dealt with a lot.
Yeah, I know.
And the way that I found to be most effective is that when the page pops up and says that it's time to verify, it's easiest just to call the front desk at whatever office you're calling and, use 2 lines on your phone. Talk to them, then while you're on the phone with them, send the call through so they know as soon as I hang up the phone with you, this call is coming, and then immediately call them right back. And while it is kind of a pain in the butt to do that, to get on the phone and keep their secretary on the phone for 5 minutes while they're handling that, it's the easiest way to handle it. It just makes everything so much more accessible. Also, if you're doing it for a business that has corrections to their page that you need to make, it's sometimes easier just to call the Google My Business hotline and get them to call the business and verify that you are the person who is supposed to be handling their stuff, and then they will give you managing control of that business. And I've had that work for me a couple of times where I just had Google call them while I was on the phone with Google and verify that I was a member of their team, and then disconnect them, and then any further changes that I needed, I could just call that number and have them make those changes for me.
Well, that's great, Ian. I really appreciate it. Nick and everybody else on the line, just want to let you know, Ian is is my project manager. He listens in on the calls. We happen to be in different countries right now, but Ian's got a lot of experience with that hands-on. So thanks, dude, for speaking up. I appreciate it.
No problem. I'm glad to help.
All right, I'll go ahead and unmute you or remute you there. This is about the only time that I can forcibly mute my people. I don't think Ian would like that. Threw a gag on him. Shut up. I don't even have a door to close in the office. All right. Got a few things here for setup. What's Ed talking about for setup? Scott, Mike says. That's all he says. Then Ed says, for the book. For the book, the cost. Okay, Ed, you're talking about create space then, not create pages. Cost in total for the book. My printing cost is $2.31. Oh, Nick says I entered a question into the chat box. I don't like these chat boxes. No, I'm in the question box. I don't see it. Yeah, that's what we were talking about. Okay, good, Nick. We got that question done. Funny, Ian. Ask this guy where to look, please. Nick says, yes, it's a real pain, and thanks to Ian. You saying that Ian's a big pain? All right. Mike is asking, is Greater Software, not greater software, Greater Software, HubSpot, Marketing Greater, useful to grade or assess potential client websites from SEO and conversion point of view as a prospecting tool? Do you know if you're familiar with HubSpot's Marketing Greater, Mike? Mike, that's a really good question. And when we follow a sale process, I follow solution selling. And with solution selling, ultimately, what you provide is a solution to a problem that you're creating for them. And to create that problem, we follow different steps. We use different tools. To create problems, then we add pain to that problem. We use the tools to do things like that. What you just described is a really good tool to create some of that pain on a website. When somebody can see it in print and it's computer generated and say, hey, these are the problems you have, this is what we're going to fix. It's a really good tool during that as a prospecting tool. No, Ed, there's no cost for setup. It's straightforward. Just get in there and do the process. All you got to do is cost of printing and a cost of shipping, and shipping's pretty cheap. And everything else is free if you do it yourself, like editing and graphic design. All right. Well, I don't see any more hands up, guys. At least we're able to get a good half hour of good content. Thanks for some good questions. You're welcome, Ed. That was some good discussion. But on that note, I will go ahead and end this call and talk to you guys next week while I'm back home. Bye for now.